Limiting beliefs holding you back. Stay tuned. This is Damon from NLP-jim. Destroy limiting beliefs with this simple NLP technique. If you haven't already, please click subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get these videos on a regular basis. All beliefs have limitations. Beliefs are basically generalizations that we make about ourselves and the world based on the information that we take in through our five senses, which then gets passed through all these cognitive processes that we have. So we're not really connecting and experiencing reality directly, so therefore we don't know all the possibilities, or we don't know all that's possible. Because we don't know all that's possible, we formulate these generalizations. We take experiences where there's all these commonalities. We draw a circle around commonalities of many experiences that we have, and we say, okay, this is how the world works. This means this. Here is the limitation. Here's what's possible. Here's what's not possible. Ultimately, though, the truth is we don't really know all that's possible, and we can have a lot of fun discovering what is possible. This doesn't mean that generalizations are bad. We're going to generalize. This is how we learn new things. This is how we navigate a world with so many unknowns. We need to have a sense of filling in the gaps and making meaning and understanding the world around us as best that we can. We've been creating generalizations, our beliefs, since we were babies. That's where it starts. Once we start to have the experience of creating experience or of acknowledging experience, we start to create generalizations about that. A belief that served you very well when you were 13 years old might not be serving you so well at the age of 31. In fact, it's probably limiting you. Unfortunately, for most people, your beliefs, especially the limiting ones, are unconscious. Instead of looking at a belief for what it is, which is just a generalization that you've made about your own personal experiences, we tend to look at our beliefs as absolute facts. This is why questioning your beliefs and reevaluating your own values on a regular basis is so important. In NLP, the very first model in NLP, called the meta model, there is a language pattern called the universal quantifier. The universal quantifier, when you can hear this language pattern in someone's language, or even in your own language or your own self-talk, this is a clear indication of a limitation in your model of the world and your map of your reality of what you think is possible and impossible. The universal quantifier uses things like always and never, like I always fail, I never win, people don't care, women are flaky, men don't listen, people are horrible. According to the meta model, you can challenge these limiting statements known as universal quantifiers, which are also generalizations. You can challenge them with questions, which forces the person to go back into their own experience and find counterexamples to this generalization, this limiting belief. And the key here is the counterexample. You will always find counterexamples that counter the generalizations you've made based on your own experiences. You have had experiences that point at this generalization possibly being true, but you have always had counter experiences to that, counter examples that contradict those experiences. For example, if a person says, I always fail, you could say, always? You've never won anything? You've never even won a game of checkers? So the person has to go in and, in order to answer those questions, finds counter examples to I will never win. If someone says women are flaky, you could say, you've never known a woman to show up on time or to do what she says she's going to do. Of course we have. We've all known, we either are that woman or we've known that woman who has shown up and who did what they said they were going to do. The same thing for men don't listen. Is that true? Is that absolutely true? There's never been a single man in this world who has listened to anyone, or that people are horrible. Really? Am I horrible? Are you horrible? Everyone in this world is horrible? So these questions challenge the limiting belief by forcing the person to go back into their database of experience and find the counter experiences, counter examples to the generalization they've made. Counter examples contradict that generalization. Healthy generalizations are not absolute. Like I said, we're going to make generalizations no matter what. They're important to make. The healthy generalizations are going to include counterexamples. You are going to understand that there are exceptions to your generalization. It's also presupposed that the generalization is not fact. It's not ultimate truth. We don't know ultimate truth. We won't ever know ultimate truth because we have a limited system of pulling in reality, and in doing so, we have to make these things called generalizations, which again are not facts. These are conclusions and judgments that we've drawn based on our personal experience. But again, that's our own personal experience, passed through our five senses, passed through all of our cognitive processes that are indicative of who we are. And every other person can experience that completely differently. When you identify a limiting belief, a good place to start is to ask yourself, what is this limiting belief doing for me? It's not there by mistake. It didn't just happen. There is some positive intent within you that created the generalization, and it is doing something for you. It may not be serving you now, but it did at one time. So get in contact with that and tap into it. What is this belief doing for you? Discover the positive intent, discover the resource that you could combine with that positive intent to create an empowering belief while leaving the limiting part behind. For example, let's say I believe I will never be rich. Well, there's a few things here that are a little bit as an aside to this process. I would want to first know, well, what does rich mean to me, and what is the ultimate higher value I would want to fulfill by being rich? So say my positive intent in having such a belief that would limit me is that I don't want to be disappointed. So then now I know what my positive intent is here. So what do I want instead of being disappointed? Well, I want to be joyful. I want to be happy. And this limiting belief about not being rich is an obvious indication that I'm placing my joy and happiness on outside circumstances, whether or not I'm going to be rich, and not wanting to be disappointed if I'm not rich. Well, what would it be like to access the resource of joy and happiness within myself in a way that's not dependent upon other people or outside circumstances? And it's easy for me, and it should be easy for you too, to tap into my own experiences and think of times where I've been joyful and happy, and it didn't cost me a dime, and the happiness and the joy came from within. It wasn't dependent on other people. It wasn't dependent on outside circumstances. The joy and the happiness was mine. That's the counterexample. Times when I've experienced joy, I've experienced happiness, and it wasn't dependent on outside circumstances. It wasn't dependent on me being rich or not, or avoiding disappointment by not being rich. The joyful and happy experiences would act then as counterexamples to this limiting belief. Sorting for joyful experiences and connecting with those joyful experiences right away gives me a sense of being joyful and happy without having to pay for it, without having to fear disappointment, and without there being a dependency on anything outside of myself. And to top it all off, while I do know that there are many rich and miserable people, I believe that it will be much easier for me to become rich if I'm coming from a place of joy, and that I'm a joyful person independent of whether or not I become rich. And even if I don't become rich, well, at least I'm joyful, and I would rather be joyful and not rich than rich and miserable. However, I don't think I have to choose between the two. That again would be another limiting belief. I believe I can be joyful and rich at the same time. You can break any limiting belief you have just by sorting for counterexamples. Give it a try. If you want to master NLP techniques like this so that you can master your life, join us for the NLP-jim's Ultimate NLP Practitioner Training coming up January 2017. This will be the most comprehensive NLP practitioner training, the least expensive for the incredible talent that we're going to have teaching this course. I'm talking about teachers like Judith Delosier, Dr. Sid Jacobson, Mark Andreas, and myself. Check out our website, nlp-jim.com. There you can sign up for the Ultimate Practitioner Training. Also, follow us on Facebook for real-time updates on upcoming workshops and free practice sessions that I hold right here in Santa Cruz. If you like this video, please click like right down here and leave me a comment or even a question. I will get back to you. Stay tuned to the end of this video so you can see how you can get your hands on a free NLP online training. Take care.